Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Eric. I'm continuing on with this series where I'm looking back at sci-fi movies from the 1980s. Later, I want to go into the 1990s and maybe eventually into the 2000s, 21st century science fiction. But today, I'm going to talk about a classic, maybe the most famous sci-fi movie of the 80s, which would be Back to the Future. I have my Blu-ray set here that has all three films of the trilogy on it. So this is one of the most popular films ever made. Its screenplay is considered one of the greatest screenplays of all time. It's part of the National Film Registry, and it really influenced all time travel movies that came after, or certainly it's hard for time travel movies that were made after not to at least reference or pay some homage to the Back to the Future movies. So its reputation has not declined at all since it was released in the 1980s. Just some quick background on the film. So this was directed by Robert Zemeckis, who was a protege of Steven Spielberg. Before this, Zemeckis had made a few films. He helped write, or he wrote 1941, the Spielberg film, or was one of the writers on that. Also did Used Cars and Romancing the Stones, so Zemeckis was on his way up. His writing partner, Bob Gale, worked on the screenplay as well. They were known as the two Bobs back in the early days. And they had been working on this screenplay for a long time, since the early 1980s. They wanted to do a time travel movie. Bob Gale has told the story many times where he was looking through his father's high school yearbook and he realized how different he was from his father. His father was kind of a real popular athlete type of guy, and Bob Gale was probably more on the geeky side of things. He sort of looked at himself, and wondering what it would be like to go back if he met his father when they were the same age. So those were some of the ideas for the film that went into it. The making of the movie also had a lot of drama. This is famously, they finally were able to get the project going with Universal, with Spielberg producing, and they started shooting with the actor Eric Stoltz playing the lead character, Marty McFly, and there might be an entire film, or at least almost an entire film, with Eric Stoltz in the lead role. But they were not happy with his performance, saying he was too serious as Marty McFly, and he was removed from the production, and Michael J. Fox, who was the original choice, was brought in to play the character. Of course, at that time, Michael J. Fox was a huge TV star on Family Ties, and famously, as Fox has talked about in many interviews, he would film Family Ties by day and go do Back to the Future by night. So just a really insane schedule to get this movie completed. So yeah, the film was a huge hit when it came out in 1985, and it released in July. And I don't really need to go into the plot, summarize the plot too much. I mean, basically, Marty McFly, typical 80s teenager, is friends with Doc Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, who's invented a time machine. Marty accidentally gets sent back to 1955, interact with his parents, puts his own future in danger, and of course they have to figure out a way to get Marty back. And the film has a lot of fun with playing with the 80s and the 50s, and kind of comparing the two eras is a big part of the film's appeal. Watching it this time, some of the jokes, some of the humor that play on the differences between the 80s and 50s. Some of those don't maybe land as well as they once did, but it's still a lot of fun. And since it's a movie about time, now that we're in the 2020s, it's probably really even more nostalgic now to go back and watch the original Back to the Future film, just for how things have gone since the trilogy was completed. I really think, the themes in the film are also, I think, very straightforward. The choices we make shape our future, which can be kind of a heavy, quote the film, about the choices we make when we're young affect what happens in the future. And yeah, that's definitely true. And how the film has a lot of fun playing with that concept. Although it's often comedic, I think as the films go along, we see there's a real darkness, I think, running through these films as well, as we see as we go through the trilogy. I think, that's a great theme. All the time, comparing different time periods, that's a great theme as well. I really think it's the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd that is so good in the film, that for whatever reason that relationship really resonates. And the rest of the cast is great, with Crispin Glover as George McFly, and Leah Thompson as Lorraine, Thomas F. Wilson as Buff, Biff, the villain of the series. Just well cast. The score by Alan Silvestri is classic. Have the Huey Lewis and the News music as well. So it's a lot of that really situates it once again in the mid 1980s. There a lot of product placement and a lot of that happening in the film. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people have read this as a very much a Reagan era film, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into that. There's definitely something to it, though, the way it compares eras, and there is a lot in the film that's in line with Reagan's rhetoric. I kind of got into that a little bit further with my Beyond Thunderdome review, so I don't want to get too much into the Reaganism theme. Although it is of note that Reagan did quote the film in one of his, I think, State of the Union addresses. So it definitely was part of that zeitgeist of the time of the mid 1980s. But unlike so many other films of this time, this one is still quoted, it's still referenced, and it's still a beloved film, and it remains so, which is always mysterious to me, why certain films just resonate for so long, even more than others. And it's really interesting in that way. Like, I think the year later, Francis Ford Coppola made Peggy Sue Got Married, which in some ways is like the inverse of Back to the Future. I think that film, in some ways, it's a little more serious, but I think that film plays well against Back to the Future. But if you wanted to do a double feature of the 80s, that would be a good one to pair with it. But watching it, just the way the technology looks in the movie, of course, you got the DeLorean, which looks cool in the film, even though that car flopped in real life. In the film, it looks cool, and the sound design in the film, and just the filmmakers had a way of, Zemeckis' direction, just had a way of making everything just look really interesting visually throughout, and that's a big strength going through Back to the Future. So of course there would be 2 sequels that will be released later in the decade, and I will talk to those at a later date when I get to them. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Back to the Future. And like I said, nothing too earth-shattering to say on Back to the Future. But anyway, if you did watch this, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll stick around for some more videos. Have a good day.